and the transparency is so important. So that's what I always tell people. Look, here's how much joy and lasting peace a World Series ring gave me. I sold it, got rid of it. Would I?
Brandon Puffer, welcome to Sports Spectrum, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jason. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to talk to you. You have quite the story. Twists and turns, ups and downs, redemption, forgiveness. There's so many things in there, I think, that we can talk about with your journey. Let's start here, though. Let's just start with who you were when you were a little kid. Like, who was that 12 or 13-year-old Brandon? Who was that guy?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd say that guy was a big dreamer, a guy who really had his mind set at that age that he wanted to be a professional baseball player. Like that was all he thought about. That's all he wanted to do. When folks were on him about homework, "Oh, I'm going to be a baseball player. It doesn't matter." Don't recommend that because that wasn't true. But I was a tunnel vision type of kid who really had his eyes set on that. And I always kind of tell people that I felt like at that time and then moving forward, if I just had one day of fulfilling that dream of being a big league ball player, my life could be complete. Which didn't find me the ultimate piece, but at the end of the day, that's how I was thinking at the time. So pretty focused on that goal.
Who were your heroes? Who was the poster on the wall or the guy that you rooted for when you were 12 or 13?
Yeah, so I had a few of them. I grew up in Southern California, and Oral Hershiser, Fernando Valenzuela, not in that order, obviously, but Fernando, then Oral. Dad, big Dodger fan. He kind of bred me to be the same. And so a lot of Dodgers, but then also I really liked Dave Winfield a lot. Big fan of his. And the reason being, and this happened with a couple other guys, is he took the time to throw me a baseball at Anaheim Stadium when he was playing for the Yankees. And it's like one of those things that stuck with me forever of what a difference something like that can mean to a little kid when you're at a ballpark and a big league ball player pays attention to you. So he became a big fan of mine pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a bad player either. I mean,
It's true.
He's
a
Hall
not
of
a bad
Famer.
athlete all the way around, right?
One of the greatest players, yeah, all around. He was drafted, I think, in football, basketball, and baseball, which is incredible. But that's a good guy to have as a hero. You eventually become and achieve that goal of being a professional baseball player. 27th round, though, Brandon, in 1994 at the MLB Draft, out of high school, and yet chose to pursue pro baseball at a young age. And I know you grinded for many years in the minor leagues. Take me through that progression of, just being drafted, being selected, and then being, into that minor league world, which is not an easy world to grind through for so many years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yes, I was drafted 27th round by the Minnesota Twins out of high school. Being again that I was in California, the high school or school session went through a little later than most places in the country. So I literally went to grad night the next day, reported to Florida to the Gulf Coast League for rookie ball.
Wow.
And so, yeah, talk about just kind of being a fish out of water a little bit and having a little freedom all the way across the country. And, exciting for sure. Absolutely exciting. It's like, here's the start of this dream. But again, just kind of for me with the maturity level and where I was set up for a lot of the other things in my life that would be pretty prevalent. So the baseball stuff was awesome. I was super excited to be drafted. Such an honor. It did not give me that peaceful feeling. I like to call it the God-shaped hole, where I was like, okay, as soon as baseball comes, that's it. I'm gonna be fulfilled. I'm gonna have peace and joy. Certainly wasn't that, but it was like, okay, now what am I in for? And let's go get after it. And for those who know, and for those who don't know, I should say, when you go to rookie ball, you had more people at your high school baseball games. It's not the pro ball you think you're going into. So
definitely there in a lot of cases, right?
Oh yeah, you're like day game, side field. But yeah, just seeing the talent and just running across all these guys who are the best in their areas from the various countries or whatever it may be was an awakening for sure. And I still have a lot of close friends from that first rookie ball team after playing 15 years and 12 organizations, because we're all in that same boat. It's like we're just in survival mode right here. We just graduated high school, in some cases 2 days ago and some a week or two ago. So definitely an eye-opening experience.
And it was 8 years later that you get your shot and make your major league debut. I want to ask you about that day in a second, but take me through kind of the mindset of staying with it, right? Because it was 2002 when you make your debut. I think you were 26, if I'm doing my math right, looking at my paper here. So
Yes.
that's a long time from being 18 to 26. What was it like for Brandon Puffer, the person, to go through this minor league grind versus, the baseball side of Brandon?
Yeah, no, it was very trying in a sense because I grew up, in a family with addiction and had a father who's just awesome, but struggled with alcoholism and some anger issues and things of that nature. And so that was always kind of right there for me as well. I knew pretty early on that those choices were not good for me. I just didn't handle them, great. And now here you are in a world where there's not a lot of supervision and you're out on your own. And as you know, athletes have a little bit of a people may look up to them a little bit, so there's opportunities there. And so it was a struggle for me. In the beginning, it wasn't so much of a struggle because I wasn't fighting really for my faith or fighting for the way I wanted to live or felt like I should live. I was just a young kid playing baseball and going out having fun with buddies. And then as faith would become more important to me, and I want to mention my faith journey as a youngster too, because my mom was very faith driven and very amazing. I'd like to touch on that more. But yeah, just this back and forth of trying to handle my business off the field, be prepared without anyone really just looking over your shoulder and having you do it was a struggle for me. It was. Once I got to the field and it's with the guys, I knew that that's comfortable, downtime, time on my own, things of that nature were a struggle for me.
What do you remember about April 17th, 2002? That was the day you made your major league debut.
Yes, that was a great day. That was a great day. I remember a lot of things. Obviously, it was a pretty cool story. I was in New Orleans, AAA with the Astros at the time. Got called up obviously the night before. They said you need to meet the team in Cincinnati tomorrow, which you can only imagine was just an incredible feeling. Just a dream come true. It was amazing. And so I did. I went to Cincinnati and man, I walked in that locker room and I just looked at the jerseys. I always tell people this. I remember just seeing Bagwell and Biggio and Berkman and Wagner. I'm like, wow, there my jersey was. I'm here. I made it, so to speak. So I mean, just phenomenal feeling. And then making that debut was interesting. It's a funny story. I was in the bullpen, and being a bullpen guy, you don't have much time, so that's probably good because I'm just sitting down there wondering when. And the phone rings, and they said, "Hey, Puff, you've got the ninth inning." So the feelings are through the roof, the heart's pounding, the whole deal. And I get in the games, ninth inning, the last out's made. So I bottom of nine, I, get out of the gate, make the jog into the mound and just couldn't feel my legs. Somehow got the warm-up pitches over, but just could not feel my body. Pretty incredible. So, first hitter is Todd Walker, obviously big star at LSU and knew all about him and ended up striking him out. And I'm like, hey, here we go. This isn't so bad. And got the next guy out. And then I hit a guy in the back, guy by the name of Jason LaRue, if you remember him. And we were former teammates and still buddies this day. And then Barry Larkin hits a double. And now the score's 7-3. So it's not out of reach as far as major league games go. And I just all of a sudden I heard like what sounded like a cannon going off, like boom, boom. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And I look back and Wagner's getting up in a hurry. Billy Wagner's getting up. They're going, we're not going to lose this game on account of this youngster. So to back up in spring training, Jimmy Williams was the manager. He was the skipper. And he told us, he said, guys, let's get this out of the way. If I come out to the mound, I'm coming to pull you out. He goes, I'll send the pitching coach, who I think at the time was Bert Hooton. If we want someone to talk, I'll send Bert. But if I come out, you want to avoid those, those on the mound kind of confrontational moments. So he was big on that because he had a couple of those. He said, that's it. No words, no questions, no, just hand me the ball. Okay. I filed that away as a rookie, right? And here he comes. So we have 2 outs, 7-3. I forget how the second out was made. Struck out Walker, whatever, got a ground ball or something. And first and third. And he comes walking out. And I'm Jason. I'm like, oh man, your debut. You want to get that. You want to get that last out. So he comes out, and I go to hand him the ball, and he goes, wait a minute. So, okay. And he says, so this is your major league debut. I go, yes, sir. And he says, you have family in town. You got to make some phone calls after the game. I said, well, have some family flew in last minute and then I'll call the rest. And okay. He goes, okay, well, what are you gonna do for dinner? He goes, you're gonna go spend some of that big league money, you're gonna eat in the spread in the locker room. What are you gonna do? And I'm looking at Jimmy, Osmus is there, and I'm just like, what the heck? The whole infield's in there. And I said, well, I suppose I'll snack in the clubhouse and then take them out to dinner. And he goes, well, okay, I'm sure they're hungry and I'm hungry. So get this last out and let's get out of here. And I mean, you just talk about the veteran savvy of Jimmy Williams to know I just needed to calm down for a second. And things were going so fast. And ended up punching out the next guy, Juan Encarnacion, and got to have that handshake with Osmus and the guys in the line. And just a cool moment, cool story that goes along with my big league debut.
That's a great story. And I love asking guys who come on the show what their big league opening day story is, but yours is a little different because of what you were told in spring training with Jimmy Williams. And then he comes out and he doesn't take the ball away from you and you get to finish that out. Do you have the ball or do you have your jersey or anything from that opening day game?
I do. They gave me a couple of the baseballs. I have one here in my office. The other one gave to my parents. I do have my Astros jersey and all that good stuff. And yeah, I think that's just what made it special was that Jimmy had seen so many people go through that. You know, he was a veteran manager at the time and he knows. And to this day, I'm beside myself watching a game on TV when someone's running out of the bullpen for a debut, just to think like a whole lifetime, a whole culmination of everything. This is the moment, you know? And so to be able to slow that down is not easy. And he knew that. And it was just the perfect strategy on his part to come out and just slow it down for a sec.
All right, before we transition into kind of the second part of all of, what you've been going through, I do want to ask you about 2004 because I just found it ironic when I was doing my research. Yeah. It said, Brandon Puffer has a World Series ring with the Boston Red Sox. And I'm like, yeah, the 2004 team. Everybody remembers that 04 team because it was so special. Greatest comeback in baseball history, beat the Yankees, go on and win their first World Series in 86 years or whatever it was.
Yep.
But you were only on the team for one day, Brandon. One day, and somehow you got a ring. Please tell that story.
I will. I'm happy to. One day, didn't pitch, was in uniform, home Red Sox uniform at Fenway, so that was cool. But yeah, I was in Pawtucket, and they called me up and said, "Hey, when it's September and you get called up, typically you're there for the duration because they expand the rosters, the whole bit." So I'm like, "Yes, here I go." I'd been traded from the Padres mid-season. I was in San Diego playing kind of close to home in the big leagues. Now I'm going, I thought I was going straight to Fenway. You're going to go to Pawtucket for a little bit, which ended up being a couple months. That's baseball. Whatever it is, it's great. So they call me up and they said, hey, our bullpen's depleted. We need a guy. Let's go. Awesome. So I'm just taking it in. I'm in Fenway. Man, I could see it, picture it, smell it right now, to be honest with you. Well, that night, Derek Lowe does a complete game shutout. Bullpen gets rested. Johnny Damon dives for a ball, hurts his thumb. They think it may be broken. So they have to call up an outfielder named Adam Heisdu, and they have to make room on the roster, and that's my spot. So they call me in the next day, literally the next day, call me in, and that was it. And I was like, wow. So I like to tell people we did have an interleague game at Fenway when I was with the Padres. I did pitch in relief. We did get our butts kicked. So I feel like I contributed a little bit to the Red Sox that season. And then sure enough, I was in spring training the next year at the Giants, and I got a call. What's your ring size and the whole deal. And so they, being the first one in over 100 years, I think they were giving one to pretty much everybody. If you sold some peanuts or whatever you did at Fenway, you're getting a ring that year.
Incredible. Yeah. And then the ring, did I read something about Pawn Stars having the ring? Like what happened to the ring?
Yeah. So great question. As I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of my story outside of baseball, went through a really hard time and I ended up selling the ring, which I can already right now feel the emotions of people listening because I was the same way. When I would hear those stories, I'm like, what? How? How could you? But I went through a tough time and I kind of justified it with, I didn't really contribute. It didn't really mean much. At the end of the day, it was just a rock bottom moment. Sold the ring. The ring, it was kind of a secret because I love the game of baseball. Like, consider myself kind of a purist. And I was like, what an embarrassing thing to know the Red Sox did that for me. And then that's the way I return the favor.
Yeah.
So I kept it really on the, hush hush for a long time until one night my phone was just going crazy. And guys are like, "Do you watch Pawn Stars? Are you watching Pawn Stars?" I'm like, "What is the deal with Pawn Stars?" I had never seen it before.
Yeah.
And the guy who had my ring showed up on Pawn Stars. It was aired. They went on there, tried to pawn it to them. They didn't want it because it was my name and not like David Ortiz or someone who actually did something.
Yeah.
But it did. So I was like, well, the secret's out on that, which is great because now with sharing my story, the vulnerability and the transparency is so important. So that's what I always tell people. Look, here's how much joy and lasting peace a World Series ring gave me. I sold it, get rid of it. Would I love to have it back now? Of course I would. But at the end of the day, it's part of the story, part of the journey. And so, yes, it ended up on Pawn Stars and they didn't want it. They wouldn't take it.
Brandon Puffer is our guest today here on Sports Spectrum. I know your faith in Christ became real to you when you were at that low point, that rock bottom point that you talked about. Before we go there, and I do want to get into that part of the story clearly, but who was God to you before that moment? You mentioned your mom and faith when you were younger. Take me through just briefly the progression of your faith up to the point when you were, having that really difficult road.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mentioned my dad, and my mom on the flip side of kind of, and this is early life when I was a little younger, was just always a spiritual rock. I mean, just a phenomenal, grounded, sold out, surrendered Christian. And then she got a job as a minister at Saddleback Church, Rick Warren, Purpose Driven Life
Sure.
Church. And I mean, when it was small, I mean, 26, 27 years ago, became the first licensed minister as a female. So, I mean, you're just talking about a rock star for Christ, literally to this day. And, but gosh, when I was young, I just kind of, I don't know what the word is for it, but I didn't really take to that. In fact, sometimes it offended me. Like I would have issues or, have a conversation or whatever. And it would be, well, let's just pray about it. Or let's see what God says about it. And you and I know now that that's exactly what the answer is. But at the time, I don't know. I resented it a little bit. I guess that's the word I was looking for. And the other side, I have my dad. He's a big old guy and he loves to party. He loves to fight and he's a man. And it's like, I kind of want to, that's what I want to be like. So the seeds were being planted, obviously a praying mother, just phenomenal. And we had to go. I mean, we went for sure, but we might go on a Sunday or go on the youth group on whatever day and then, make whatever choices we were. It wasn't really all that real to me at the time or a personal relationship. But I knew, I mean, the seeds were there. It was like, this is real. And then when my dad became sober, he got saved through Celebrate Recovery, which is a faith-based program that started at Saddleback Church. He was one of the first founding members. And I saw the change in his life. And that's my encouragement to just parents and fathers and men who lead kids. It's like when I saw the change, like my mom, I'm just like, she's an alien. She's always been like this. I don't know. My dad, I saw the change. I said, something's real here. And so I was saved in 1998, off season, 1998 at Saddleback Church they called it at the time, a young adult college group. So I was saved, said the prayer, I did the deal. I quit drinking. I didn't want to cuss. I wasn't doing, it was like, no, this is not what Christians do. There was not a surrendered, peaceful, joy, like loving spirit about it. It was just like, I'm not doing that anymore. Now my career, trended up quite a bit because I was taking care of myself. I wasn't staying out late. I was working hard. But when I hit a rough spot in my life, separation from my first wife, being away from my kids for the first time, that's when I looked at the faith aspect and thought, that's when I was tested, I should say. And it just wasn't as strong as I thought it was. So after 5 years of sobriety and being saved, I went back down that other road that had always been there. And when it got a hold of me, it got a hold of me quick, and it got a hold of me worse than it ever had. And so that battle from that point on of knowing what's right, wanting to do what's right, but not always doing it is still a battle to this day. But that's when it started. And then when we get to the point where I have quite a bit of time on my own to really reflect and get introspective about things is when my faith and my surrender really kind of took off.
Yeah, take me to, I'm assuming this is the rock bottom moment when you have the September 2008 incident. And that's a a hard one, I think, for a lot of people to have to go through. But for you, as you went through that and kind of journeyed through that, you came out better on the other side. Take me through what happened.
Yeah. So yes, another date that, really kind of resonates for different reasons. But
Sure.
I want to say it was September 14th, I believe. And September 13th was just like any other day for me. I was now kind of Bull Durham style. I was back in double A as a 30-year-old, double A for the Rangers. It was close to home. They asked me if I would come and mentor the young guys. It was like Chris Davis and Derek Holland and Elvis Andrews and all these studs on one team. I'd be honored to, absolutely. And the irony of it is I was there to help them become professionals and mentor them and do all those things. But I had that internal battle still going on. I was the chapel leader of the team. I was, certainly their leader, but I still had these struggles with making the right choices and being pulled in that direction of the nightlife and the things that go along with well, I say professional sports, just in general with life, but it seems to be very prevalent there. And so yeah, I here we go. We're throughout the season. I'm kind of one foot in, one foot out. The guys are asking me to go out. They always want me to party with them. They're the young guys. I'm the old guy. I'm like, guys, I can't do it. I just, by this point I knew I'd had enough, kind of bad decisions made. I was like, I can't do it. And I remember the words, come on, it's just one night, one night. And I just remember that. I always remember them saying that in the bullpen. I said, guys, I could ruin my life in one night. Like I've almost done it.
Hmm.
No, come on, whatever. So fast forward, September 13th, just like any other night. The 14th, we're celebrating being in the championships. We're having a good season, driving to the yard, kind of doing my normal routine. And I'm just, something in me was like, you know what? I'm going to go out with the guys tonight. Tonight's the night. I'm going to do it. And I'll tell you, Jason, I heard a voice be like, not a good decision. Don't do it.
Yeah.
That little voice when it's talking to you, it's like, nah, you don't want to do this. And I just kind of ignored it. And then I actually heard the voice even a little stronger say, matter of fact, you should probably go meet with the coaches and tell them you need to get some help. And this was kind of internally going on in my dialogue as I'm driving to the yard. I'm like, well, I can't do that. That's selfish, right? Like here we are in a championship run. I'm a leader and I'm going to put the spotlight. I'm not doing that. Which, obviously we know would be an unselfish move, but at the time that was just the trick. That was just kind of the enemy's words going, nah, you're fine. And so I did. I went out with the guys that night, overindulged by a lot, and woke up the next day in an orange jumpsuit.
Mm.
Heard my name over an intercom, and guys next to me were in orange jumpsuits, and I was in jail. And I'm happy to go into as much detail as we need to, or don't. I just, depending on listeners and where I'm at and who I'm sharing with, I just but happy to total open book on it. And it was bad enough to where I ended up getting a 5-year sentence in prison, Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And, even at the time, I thought I was going to be like, oh, okay, you messed up, slap on the wrist, what a dummy. Because in my mind, it was still like, I wasn't trying to harm anyone. I wasn't put myself in a bad spot. I made some bad choices for sure, but like criminal, and so sure enough, I went to prison. I had 9 months out on bond before I knew what my fate would be. And that's when I really just started digging in. I was just like, okay, this is where it got me. Let's start figuring out some life changes. Baseball's on the back burner, obviously. You've always put that at the front. And when you put your sport at the forefront of everything, you're really in a selfish mode. I mean, it's really just all about you and your career and your routine and all those things. And that was me. I'm very selfish in that way. And so, just had a lot of friends come around me, a great family come around me. And then I went to trial about 9 months later, and they gave me the 5-year sentence. And Jason, that's when they came out and handed that sentence down. I mean, it was a surreal deal. I mean, Nolan Ryan came in as a character witness, Jackie Moore, my manager at the time. I'm like, because of my decisions, guys like this are having to come in a courtroom and speak on my behalf. Honored. No, it was a blessing, but it was like, man, this is just, it's too much. It was like a movie. I mean, it literally felt like a movie to me. And they gave me the sentence, put me in handcuffs. I said, can I go say bye to my dad? And they said, no. I said, okay. And I went, they stripped me of my clothes, put me in what I'd be wearing for the next several years, and closed the gate, the bars to the cell. They put me in a little cell. And literally, and I don't mean to over dramatize it or whatever the case may be, but again, like a movie, I heard the clink and I got silent. And I was just like, okay, God, here I am. And every prayer up to that point, Jason, was like, don't let me go to prison. get me out of this. I'll do this. I'll do that. Whatever. Come on. And that one was different. That one was like, you know what? Sure, he can get guys out anytime. He can do anything he wants to do. But this one was more like, okay, this is my new reality. Help to use me any way you can in this. Don't know what that's going to look like. Had no idea, fast forwarding, that I would get to share with people my story and get to, lead young men and these types of things. But it was like, here we go. And so from that moment on, that's when that peace and that joy came in. And people are like, what, in prison? I said, oh yeah. I said, I was mopping floors as a janitor in prison, singing praise songs, smiling, laughing, having fun, to the point where guys are like, man, you're crazy. Like, you used to pitch, you're in here. And I said, you know what? None of that stuff gave me the peace and joy that now, knowing that God is all I need, when he's all I have, because he's all I had. When I hit the system in Texas, all I had was my Bible. And they were on a lockdown. So 9 days of just laying there, no AC, sweating bullets, reading, drawing close to God. And it was like, that never happens. You never really take that time to slow down. And so, and I still have to remind myself all the time. It's like, now I'm running and gunning again and going. It's like, remember when that's all you had, and you had so much peace and joy. That was the moment. The first day when they put me behind bars is when the surrender truly happened. Salvation had happened before that, but there was a true surrender. And it was like, whatever I face, whatever I'm up against, I got this with you. God, I can get through this with you.
Wow. Yeah. Just so people know this, we do have a lot of families that listen. So I think it was mindful of you to not necessarily go into too much detail, but it was an assault. It involved a woman, just so people know what took place. If they want to look it up, I'm sure they could find it online. And you're going to probably write about it a lot in your new book that's coming out from bullpen to the state pen, which will be coming out later this year. And we'll talk about that as well in a second.
Awesome.
When you came out of prison, or maybe when you were in prison, you kind of talked about what you were, what happened in there. You saw a real transformation take place. It's you, it's God, it's your Bible, and it's these, small four walls that you're in, and that's it. 3.5 years you spent there, though. On the way out, and you come out. Who is Brennan Puffer coming out of that jail cell for that final time?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And so it was all those things you mentioned, but it was also just a ripe ministry of just broken men who had made a similar mistake, or maybe worse, and they were going to spend their whole life there and never get out. Gives me God bumps chills to think about, because I think about those guys right now, and it's like, they're in there. Jason, it's happening right now, man. It's guys who are good guys, talented, gifted men, who they're just, for lack of a better term, just kind of rotting away. And you really have to be intentional if you want to come out of there better. And I did. I mean, I truly did. I wanted to be a better man for my kids, and I wanted to just be a better man in general. And so I read a lot. I went to every class I could. I went to every, sometimes volunteers would come and do church. So I went to all that, and it was like, again, when are you going to have the time to really focus on these types of things? And so I felt like I grew a lot in that way. But humility, just who was that guy who came out? I'm going to show you something. I don't know how well you can see this, but it's an onion sack.
Yeah.
And when you leave, that's all they give you. And so you put what you have in there. And at that time, it was a Bible and some hygiene. And I started over. And when I say I started over, Jay's like, my times were tough because I sold the ring. I didn't have anything left, like not financially for my career, not, you got the house and you got the car. No, it was all gone. So literally started over, but just as happy and content as could be. And I think humility was a huge part of that. So when I first came out, I got offered an opportunity to work at the Dell Diamond in Round Rock. The Ryan family owns the team, and they said, hey, we're going to take care of you. When you get out, give us a shout. And it was like, well, we don't really have much, but we have a maintenance position. I'm like, well, I can't fix anything, but I'll do whatever you guys want me to. So the humility of just painting or staining or pressure washing the stadium, and just being happy as could be with that, was really truly a lesson for me. And the we keep mentioning the God-shaped hole, the peace, the joy. Once that was in there, it was like, yeah, man, I'm in prison. I'm seeing some awful things. I'm having some encounters that are not fun. I'm missing my family. It's an awful experience. It sure is. But peace and joy are not based on, your happiness or your circumstance. And that's really the lesson I learned there. And it carried me through a lot of humble jobs, as I was getting back on my feet, and now God just keeps blessing and restoring, and so kind of helping me out every step of the way from there.
So now where you are today, and we're going to talk about GPS Texas baseball in a second too, which I do want to talk about, but who's Jesus to you today? Who's Jesus to Brandon Puffer today?
That's a great question. He's everything. Absolutely everything. I wish my actions always spoke that, right? But it's always that battle. But when it comes down to it, I mean, I'm nothing without him. Have nothing without him. There's no GPS Texas. There's no podcast with Jason. There's no book. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's just everything that I have, or opportunity I get is straight from him. And I don't feel worthy of it. I never do. He just does it, and almost like comical in a sense of like, hey, I'll elevate Brandon's story because everyone will know it's me, because it couldn't be him, because he just blows it all the time without me. And it's like, so that's to answer your question.
Thanks so much for watching today on Sports Spectrum. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos. And if you want more stories on sports and faith, check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.